welcome everybody to another episode of Software Architecture on Stream, this time around in English, because we are going to talk about submissions, and we happen to have several members of a committee here of a conference that will be done in English, so that is why we figured that we would do this episode in English. And before we start, do you want to introduce yourself? So, Diana, do you want to start?
Sure thing. Hi, my name is Diana. I am working on conferences and other events for over 10 years now in the IT sector, international conferences. So all of my conferences were in English. So I'm very glad that we are talking in English, because usually my brain when it comes to conferences is in English. So speaking in German about it is sometimes a bit difficult.
Excellent. Jörg.
Yeah, I've been starting my career as a conference member or as somebody there as a speaker. So I'm started speaking about in 2010. And since about 2015, I'm also part of several program committees of some community conferences mainly. And yeah, I'm now working together with those nice guys on the AMA conference.
Yeah, and last but not least, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I started organizing conferences in 2003, I guess, and been speaking on conferences since about that time as well. But it really took off, like in the way of participating in PCs, organizing, helping other people, working together with other people to organize conference in like 2010, I guess. So that's it. And now we're in this committee together with a couple of other people organizing the AMA, which is really nice. And thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for joining. And I mean, a typical first question would be, why would I even care? So, and this time around, the question could be broken down to, why would I even speak at a conference? So, what's the benefit? Why would I be interested in doing that?
Well, I actually, sorry, I started speaking at conferences for two reasons. First of all, it was some kind of a challenge I liked, and I just wanted to do that. I thought, well, that's something I want to try, and let's see how it works. Second thing, it's one of the best ways I found to really deeply learn about a certain topic. So you really have to prepare for every situation, for all kind of questions. So that's a very funny thing. And yeah, you keep learning a lot about topics, but also learn a lot of people, and that's fun.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
Yes, I would totally agree. But I would like to add that if you want to put ideas out there, if you want to convince people of things of your point of view to a certain topic, to a certain area of expertise, actually preparing for a conference and having that conference talk is quite a good way to get the discussion started and to get the word out.
Yeah, cool. So I guess the rest of the episode is more like sort of the life cycle of a conference as a speaker. So and obviously it sort of starts with the CFP, the call for papers. So how would you read a CFP, and what's the most important information that you can get out of it?
Yeah, maybe we can just share how our CFP is built up. So Jörg, can you just put it on the screen and go through it?
I will do. Just a second. Okay, there it should be on the screen. Yeah, that's actually our call for proposals at the moment. And well, most calls for proposals are looking kind of the same. So the first thing is the program committee is usually trying to tell you what's their conference about. So why are they doing this conference? What are the main parts of the conference and so on? So this is the part we have here. So what's Agile meets architecture? What is our conference, and how do we actually choose talks. That's one of the other things you very often find in CFPs. So how do we do the program building? When are the deadlines? Very important. So when do you actually have to submit a talk, and when is the latest? And yeah, we all know that most people are entering their talks in the last 10 hours of the CFP. Please do not do this. Yeah, and then you will learn quite a lot about again, what the conference is about and what the program committee is usually looking at. Very often you find something like that. You find a list of topics that the program committee is looking for, like specific ones, maybe different styles of sessions. That's also often part of a program or from a call for proposals. Yeah, that's about it. And of course, very often people also want to have some topics they haven't thought about, because program committees don't always know everything about what's around there. Yeah, that's more or less all the stuff. But
now he froze, and I would just take over. Of course, you also have to know how long should that talk be. So session timing is very important. And then what do you need to hand in for the program committee to actually rate you? So a title would be good. Then what is it about? What type of session are we at? Is it a deep dive? Is it just an overview of something, or things like that? Let me just pull up the website myself so I can just go further.
While you do that, let me take the chance to also add that this is, of course, an example.
Yes.
We took our own one. Sometimes it goes much deeper into details and has much more rigor in how you have to propose. And sometimes it's even less formal. So this is just like the middle of the road, what you see here. It's not the most detailed and not the most open one. It's kind of representative.
So this is actually what we are looking for. So this is all the details that you should put into your submission. And then you can submit your proposal. Here we have an extra system. It's called Sessionize. Let me just make this a bit bigger so you can see that. And here are the little details that we want from you. I actually already have a profile. I can put in some other things. You can enter a co-speaker if you don't want to talk on your own. And then, of course, you can submit your session and we can see what you entered.
The important part here, Diana just mentioned it in passing, but this little detail, of course, I already have a profile. That's sometimes something that requires really a lot of time, because a lot of conferences have a very short space for that, and you need to have a profile that's relevant for the conference and for the talk. It's better to really have something that portrays you in a way that works, and it's not just it's not about your CV. It's about why does your appearance here matter.
So you don't have to only think about the talk that you want to give. You have to think about the biography that you sent to the conference. Is it relevant? Is it not relevant? Usually it is relevant.
Anything else to add? So maybe because I do submit quite a few talks and I'm not part of the committee. So my takeaway from this specific conference would be, first of all, the title actually says a lot about what kind of talks I could submit, right? It has to be something about agility and architecture. So it wouldn't make a lot of sense to submit a talk that talks just about architecture or just about agility. So I think that's already from sort of the name of the conference, you can tell what the idea is. Sometimes that's not possible but then still, there is sort of a headline, or there's a rough idea about what is going on, and then I think scanning through the the topics is a good idea. So what caught my eye when you browsed through it is that stuff about legacy systems and old systems and how that fits in, because that's not obvious, right? I mean, you can talk about agility and architecture, and you can talk about architectures that fit for agility, like microservices, but obviously in a legacy system, that's not an option. So when I would submit to that conference, I would probably I think it's interesting to go through those topics and think about whether you have anything to add to those specific topics. So that probably gives you some ideas, and that is something that caught my eye. So there were a few other bullet points, but and I would browse through them and see whether I have anything to add there. So that's pretty much it. And and the formal stuff, because you're using Sessionized, there is no way to get around them. So you cannot fail just because you somehow missed the formal stuff. That is, and nowadays, I think that's common. I can hardly think about any conference where you would send it in as an email or so. So usually it's a web form, and the formal stuff is just sort of obvious, right? So that's it.
Mhm.
Maybe one additional thing, we do have the YouTube channel linked in the beginning of the CFP for a reason. So one good idea is also to take a look at what happened there in previous years, so you get a feeling of what kind of conference this is and what talks have been actually taken there before.
Yeah, and that goes for every conference. Just look at
Yeah.
the history of the conference. Who did they invite before and what topics did they have?
Right, yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. Oh, and one thing, I think you have to take the CFP serious. So sometimes, I get I get an abstract that basically says, here are some bullet points, and it's not really thought through, and it's just the work of a few minutes. So and then I feel like I'm not taken seriously. So that's another point. But I think we will come to that later. Okay, so how would you find a topic for a talk?
Jörg, go ahead.
I hope I'm not dropping out again. Yeah, that's an interesting point. So take a look at what you're doing each day. And I think one of the most interesting talks I always see is people talking about their day-to-day jobs and their experiences there. So this is a very easy one for people that are starting actually with talks. So take a look. What experiences did you do in your team? If you are looking at Agile meets architecture, what is the Agile stuff you're doing there? How does it relate to the architecture? And explain your experiences. That's a very easy one to find a topic to talk about, and to also find a topic that you are definitely competent of, because it's your experiences. And they might be different from other people's, but it's yours. So yeah, that's one good idea I can give everybody who wants to start with talking.
Or as you said in the beginning, if it's one topic that you really want to learn, and then you are forced to learn it.
Yes, and especially with the latter ones, I see it as a very good opportunity if it's very focused. Like, don't be too broad. Like, well, I have no clue about software architecture yet, so I will give a talk about software architecture. Would be a little bit too broad, or way too broad. But the other way around, well, there's this very, very interesting topic, and I can't really figure out now how that will fit into my agile approach, and it's from the realm of software architecture, and I want to delve into this niche. Then it's really nice. It's a really nice opportunity that also helps listeners afterwards, because all the stuff you learn during that is then presented in a condensed way. It's usually very interesting.
Maybe two things. Go ahead.
One more thing, what I often see is that people who are in the consulting business or are visiting many clients, that they convert what they're painting on whiteboards every day anyways, that they make this into a talk. That's also quite helpful. And the whiteboard drawings get much better after the talk, by the way.
Yeah. two things I might want to add. So one thing is, someone said at one point, I'm not sure where I heard it, that it's important that you care about the subject. So if you deeply care about the subject, that's going to be a good talk. And concerning the competence, I think it's fine to say that I don't know if there are questions, so you shouldn't be too afraid about competence. So yeah, but obviously you need to have, if you have a good example and a good story, and you don't know all of the theory, I think it's fine, and it's also fine to admit that also. So that's
Yeah.
also good. I mean, this is not science that we're talking about, right? It's not a scientific conference.
Yeah,
Okay.
one of my experiences is really if you're giving a talk and either it doesn't matter how good an expert you are on the topic, you will get questions that you will not be able to answer. That's completely normal, so you don't need to be afraid of that. And on the other hand, very often I learned very interesting things from that. So I got questions where I thought, well, I never thought about that. I have to look that up. And then I learned something from the talk actually that I gave.
Yeah, and one of the tricks that I try to use is to actually say, well, that is a very good question, to encourage people to ask more questions, and I can only second that about learning from the questions. So I think that's great. Anything else? Otherwise, yeah, what could be a good talk? Okay, so I think we covered that. So how would we write a good abstract? What needs to be in the abstract?
Well, lots of things and not too many. That's the trick part about it. But I'm on several committees, and I see all kinds of abstracts. And usually, when I read them, I really have an opinion like in the first 30 seconds or so. So my basic impression when I read an abstract as a member of a PC is formed inside reading or skimming through the first two paragraphs. So a good abstract for me but you may differ, but for me, really gives me an idea of what others will take from that talk in the first paragraph. Not necessarily what I, as a PC member or as the organizer of a conference, will take from it, but what it would provide to others. That would be one point.
Yeah, I for me, the same. It should be either at the beginning or at the end. What does the audience get out of this talk? This is one key point. You can describe your talk in details, like on 4 pages. I don't care. Really, I need to know, what does the audience get out of it?
Yeah. So, I mean, you have to see what the abstract is usually used for. So the abstract is used to get the audience interested, because most of the times the same abstract that you put into the CFP is also used in the program. So it should not be very long. It should be short. It should interest the audience. And if it interests the audience, it also interests the program committee. And then there is very often an additional field with notes or something like that that you can give to the program committee, maybe, for instance, explaining why you are an expert in that topic, or where this comes from, or something like that. That's something which doesn't belong to an abstract. And well, in the end, it's a very fine balance between having some kind of a clickbaity text. So you have to raise interest of your audience pretty fast, but you probably shouldn't have a talk title like 10 things I learned from, and the last one will surprise you, because that's probably more of a red flag, at least to me, unless it's really this kind of funny talk. But yeah, this is the fine balance. And well, I was about to do the joke, just ask ChatGPT. It might help these days to get some kind of structure in there, but you should better think for yourself.
What I really like is some CFPs have that as a separate topic, some don't. What I really like to see is if there are concrete learning goals, and not in that first or last paragraph, but somewhere. And it doesn't state, the abstract doesn't state, I will talk about whatever, I will talk about software architecture, but something like using Bloom's taxonomy or anything like that, where you really describe, after the talk, people will have heard about, they will be able to explain, they will be able to recognize, whatever. So just 2 or 3 lines of that somewhere in the abstract. It's really helpful.
And it should be easy to see who's the target audience. I mean, at a lot of conferences, the target audience is well known because it's, well, who's usually on the conference. But very often you have a mixed audience. And then it should be interesting whether it's more the product owner and manager type people that you're talking to, or is it more the software developer? So yeah, as somebody in the audience, I would like to know, is this a talk I should go to?
And also on what expert level is it targeted to? So to what expert level is it targeted to?
So all this stuff into 5 sentences, then you have a great abstract.
Good luck with that.
So Fabauti on Twitch said that I actually do have a talk with such a title. I think it's about 10 typical architecture mistakes, and the third will surprise you, which basically says that tastes of program committees might be different, and I thought it was a fun title, so I got away with it. And that's how you see that there are quite a few different people who think differently about such things. And Lisa, who's usually also doing the sketch notes here and who also presented a few of the episodes here, said on YouTube that she thinks letting someone read your abstract before submitting is very helpful. And that's actually a great idea, in particular if you got to know someone who wrote a few abstracts before or might even be a part of a program committee. And lastly, I'm not sure whether that's obvious, but I'm sometimes surprised that I find an abstract that says, I mean, if we talk about agile and architecture, it might say, okay, so it's hard to build an architecture that supports agility. And I'm like, yeah, true, but you know, what's your solution to that? So that basically states something that is out there and that is a problem or a topic, but doesn't really say what the talk will be about. And I think so an abstract that says, okay, so having an architecture that supports agility, that's a good first sentence or something, or first paragraph, and then you should say, and I'm going to propose microservices as a solution for that. And then you actually say what your talk will be about and how you're going to solve the problem. And I think you need to have both. And sometimes I only get the problem statement. I'm not sure that it's too often that I get a solution without a problem statement, or that this is a problem. And if you just state this is a problem, then the talk doesn't really have any value because it's just a problem statement. And I'm surprised by these kinds of abstracts, because to me it seems quite obvious, but obviously it's not obvious. So,
yeah.
Talking about, so what are things that would make you reject a submission right away? What are some red flags for CFP submissions?
Product pitch. I want to sell you my product, and this is how I will do it. Sometimes it's not that obvious, but yeah, sales pitch, product pitch, something like this is just like, yes, I know you have to go out there, but maybe not here.
I think it depends a little bit.
Yeah, of course. It's very generalized what I said right now. I know there are open source projects and stuff like this. Yeah.
Exactly, and I think like the people who build Kafka, if they want to talk about Kafka, I would be happy to have them on a conference. And if they're even also able to explain why Kafka enables more agility, I would maybe even like to have them on our conference. I don't know yet. So that's not the product pitchy part. The product pitchy part, from my point of view, would really be more if it's not explaining, not giving some deeper insights into something we all know, but really saying, yeah, we have the one solution. Like what Jörg said earlier, the third thing will surprise you. And if that third thing is the product, then that would definitely be a red flag. Very big one for me.
Another one which I sometimes come across is people that think if they are mass submitting talks, then they are raising their chances. And to be very honest, they are not. We should probably, I as a program committee member, really have the wish that please do not do this. Please do not submit 5, 6, 7 talks to a conference. This for me is actually a red flag, because this, to me, it means a little bit you didn't really care about what my conference is about. You just entered every talk that you have in your drawer and see whether you hit something, and you're just somehow even wasting my time, to be honest, by reading all that kind of stuff instead of thinking for yourself. It's not bad if you're submitting 2 or maybe 3 different talks if they really fit the topic. But there are people out there that I know that are regularly committing or submitting to conferences 5, 6, 7 talks, and it's always the same talks. And to be honest, this is not very good if you want to be accepted.
And you raised another topic there. The topics, your talk submissions should fit to the topics. So what we said earlier, it doesn't help if you send us in a talk about chemistry for Agile meets architecture. It will not help.
Or to be really talking about a specific one we got last year, somebody who entered a lot of stuff about big data and data science for Agile meets architecture without any explanation how this relates to Agile and architecture. And this is just, I mean, this is somebody he makes the impression of being a conference tourist and just entering at every conference the same talks. And this is really kind of a red flag for me.
And this is also where I have to say that usually the people that are organizing conferences, they know each other and they are on different conferences in different program committees. And if you are a red flag in one conference, that might go around. So people talk to each other, basically.
Yeah, so I just got the question that, you know, if you submit 6 talks and all of them fit, why wouldn't you accept them? I guess I have to admit that I have yet to see such a situation. I think that's the problem, because I mean, either those talks are either you're really an expert on and you know there is a narrow expertise, because that goes without saying, and then it's not possible to have 6 very different talks. So 2 or 3 maybe, but 6 is a little bit too much. And then the talks are so close that it doesn't really help. It's just going to be one of them anyways, I think. I mean, you're going to be, just one of them is going to be accepted anyways.
Yeah.
Probably.
And if you really have variations of your talk and you want to offer a variation and say, okay, maybe I could talk a little bit more about this topic or that topic, then please use the note field. You can just write it down and tell the program committee, hey, this is my talk. I could go more in this direction or in that direction if you think that fits better to your conference. That's the much better strategy than just entering slight variations of your talks or something like that. And I agree to Eberhard. I have never seen somebody entering 6 talks which are really on the point and fit to the conference. I think the most I've seen is maybe 3 or 4, and that was from very, very good speakers that really know what they're talking about.
There are some things that increase the number of talks that are plausible. One thing is if you have a conference like the OOP, for example, where you have lots of tracks maybe you have more tracks to cover. So I would personally not be offended to see the same person presenting in 2 tracks where I'm a reviewer. And the other thing that, at least for me, gives some leeway is if there are people like one of our speakers last year who had lots of co-speaking engagements.
Yes.
Like, I'm together with them, I'm together with them. So then I would also maybe +1 the number.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about it. More seems more like 4, or more than 4 seems like very unreasonable.
One thing, because you just mentioned about, submitting the same, maybe we should ask that question right away. Because you said, well, if you have a few talks in your drawer and you just take them out and submit them to arbitrary conferences, that might not be a good idea. So can I reuse talks for different conferences? Or is there a way
Sure,
to do
of
that?
course.
Sure.
It's your work. You put in a lot of effort and work and stuff. So yes, you should.
Maybe we didn't talk about that yet, but the effort that you put into a good talk is really big. And I know that there are some conferences out there that write into their CFP stuff like the talk you submit should not be held at any other conference or be published before. And to be honest, that's unfair because doing a good talk, which is maybe 40, 45 minutes, is somewhere around a work week of work to really do this in a good way. And to ask somebody to submit for one single conference a full week of work is just unreasonable. So it's normal that you enter talks into several conferences. They just have to fit, and that's fine. There are many conferences which are usually around the same topic. The conferences are at very different places. Oh, by the way, that's also one good reason for doing talks at conferences. You just travel a lot, and you can see a lot of interesting places, actually. So yeah, absolutely reuse.
And also getting back to the point of please do not have this talk at any other conference before. How should I practice my talk? I want to practice my talk. I want to see the reaction of the audience and adjust my talk according to that. So of course I will start giving my talk at a meetup, for example, and then go to a conference with it.
And I mean, one thing that you can also do is sort of adjust the talk. I mean, when you have a conference that talks about agile and architecture, and you have a talk that talks about microservices, for example, you can take your generic microservices talk and specifically fit it to that topic. So you could say, okay, here is my generic introduction to microservices. And now I tell you how this supports Agile, and then half of the talk is sort of done, because you probably have that generic intro, and then you just do the rest. So that would have been a talk that you could have given like in 2015 or so. Obviously, not a good idea these days, but that is one way to sort of get around that topic, get around the problem that you just resubmit the same stuff over and over again. Any other red flags? I think we sort of covered it.
Mostly, we covered it. This whole thing about really pitching something can take so many forms. So that's maybe the one that I would reiterate. But apart from that, of
Maybe
course,
I should.
of course, pitching something doesn't only mean products. It can also be political beliefs and so on. I've seen that once or twice, where I was quite surprised. Of course, it goes back to it should fit the topic of the conference, but also, yeah, it should be ethical and so on. I mean, everyone who's listening here and so on will will already be there, but I was quite surprised what some people submit sometimes.
And maybe to reiterate what I said before, so if it's too clickbaity, of course, this sounds strange to me. It might work actually, and that's one of the other important points. If you submit, it should be something authentic. It should be something that fits to you. And that, by the way, could also be another red flag if you are, for instance, somebody who is pretty new to giving conference talks and so on, and you are proposing a completely new theory, then it might, it will be lucky if some conference is really taking you, because you are then proposing some completely new thing, but you are probably not one who people really believe to. So you need some credibility to do this. So it has to be authentic. It has to be something that people can believe you are the one telling them.
Okay. So how does a program committee like yours actually work? So how do you get to say this is going to be part of the conference and this is not going to be part of the conference?
There, one like ours is kind of a little bit special because we have this year we have a blind evaluation. So there are many ways PCs can vote on the talks. Sometimes it's a rating system and so on. And the amount of information that's provided to the speakers, to the PC from the speakers, varies hugely. And for the AMA Conf this year, we decided to have a completely blind first round. So the whole PC, even we, only see the stuff you put into the submission form as notes and abstract and subject, but we don't know your profile yet. We don't know your name, nothing. And this will conclude the first round. So after that, it's basically...
Can I just
sure.
put in there, if you read something like this on a CFP page, that they will do a blind recess, just the first round or anything, please do the program committee a favor and do not put anything in there that will point them to who you are. That will not be in your favor. So put in your abstract just your abstract and not your name or whatever, or Twitter account or Mastodon account or anything. Because if they say, we want to do a blind CFP, they want to do a blind CFP.
You still can put references to former videos of your talk,
Yes.
speaking somewhere, but it should not be discernible from the link what it is. So you really can turn a blind eye if you want to.
Yes.
Why are you doing a blind election of the talks evaluation, right? I mean, Jörg just said like a few minutes ago that if person A says this is great and person B says this is great, might be, you know, if person A is really unexperienced, it might be something that is that you obviously want to you don't want to have on the conference, while person B, who is really, really famous, says the very same thing. You really do want to have it on the conference because it's going to be revolutionary. So how do you deal with that, and why have you chosen to do a blind evaluation?
Well, we are actually doing this in the first round. So we would like to keep biases based on who the person is as much out as possible. And see what the result is there. So see, well, even for maybe interesting theories, see whether we can believe them without knowing the name behind it, and that makes it even a better evaluation. So biases play a huge role. We probably will talk about other problems about diversity and stuff like that later on. You don't want to be biased because you know the speaker, because the speaker is like you or something like that. So This is the reason you're doing this kind of blind thing. But then again, you also have to do a second round to think about, okay, is this plausible? Does the person is this somebody who we might want to have in the program because a lot of people know this person? I mean, this is, of course, also important for a program committee because in the end, we also want to have an audience and want to make the audience interested in the conference. Yeah, that's the reason. So biases is really the short answer.
So two questions. So first of all, that sort of says that in the next round you're going to do it differently.
Now we do have 2 rounds actually. We do
Okay.
have a round where we rank all the stuff, and then we have a second round where we have all the information about the talks, and then we are joining both information together and hope that we have the best result out of that.
So then that talk by person B who's really, really famous might still be in the program, even though you might have said it.
There might be another bias the other way around. So there are people, even famous ones, that are very good at writing abstracts, and then there are some that are not very good at writing abstracts, but are still experts in the topic, or are known for giving great talks, but the abstract might not be the best one. So the blind audition might also be a disadvantage for some speakers. So you definitely need both information on that. So as a program committee, if you really want to do a good program, you have to consider all kind of information you can get.
And I guess the point is, we are going to talk about that later on also, is about trying to get to deal with underrepresented group to make sure that they are not underrepresented. So that's the point.
Exactly. Yeah.
And again, this is only how our program committee is working. There are other program committees out there that are working totally different.
Yeah. There's, for instance, a completely different style, which is more the invite-only style, I would call it. Where the program committee does not really have an open CFP, but they are actively looking for experts in a certain area and then writing emails to them and asking them whether they want to give a conference talk and so on. This has some other advantages. So you can really create a very interesting program for your audience. But on the other hand, you are, first of all, not very friendly to newcomers. On one hand, because if somebody is unknown, you would probably not write a mail to them. And the other one is that, of course, you might be missing topics because you as a program committee are then the ones that say, okay, we are also the experts on the topics because we chose the topics. That might be wrong too.
So Dudrut on YouTube asked the questions, why don't more conferences provide possibilities for newcomers like mentoring programs or special slots for them? So what are your thoughts on that?
It's hard to say. Why aren't more conferences doing that? One thing that I see, it's really a lot of effort to do that. Then I see some conferences who actually specialize on that. They have a shepherding phase where they really hone the talks to fit to the conference. And I also see conferences like ours where we just try to encourage people to submit and say, okay, we can help you, but we don't make it a priority. So I see the full range. And for me, it's hard to answer why not more of them are doing it. I would assume that it's got to do with capacity.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I said I was working on a ton of conferences internationally, and it was always the capacity. Like there are a lot of people involved in the conference, and they all have different tasks, and you have to bring on more people to mentor and help other speakers. So what we did with one conference was we paired up speakers. So there were experienced speakers and there were non-experienced speakers, and we just paired them up. So you, when you were accepted, or even when you're not accepted as a speaker, we asked, would you like to give your time to mentor a non-experienced or less experienced speaker, and then paired them up. So that would be a possibility for conferences to do this. But usually, like with our conference here, we are doing this on the side, not really in our job. So we do it. Yeah, we have limited time to do the things that we would like to do and that we would like to do for the conference.
Yeah, maybe that's one important fact I also want to mention. For many tech conferences in Germany, the program committees and even the organizers are not full-time conference organizers. They are doing their day jobs, and then sometimes in the evening or very early in the morning, they are doing this kind of stuff. So sometimes if I hear people talking about, couldn't you do this more and that more and this more, it might be a little bit unfair, those people to those people that do this more or less in their spare time. But this is one aspect. And the other one, or the other one that I wanted to mention here, is what we did at one conference, the Micro Exchange a few years ago, was preparing some videos or some kind of a small video course in how to give a talk and all that kind of stuff. Maybe if we can find it, we might be able to link it here, Eberhard, somehow. Because that's also an idea to at least give some basis there. And the other thing, if you ask as a speaker or as somebody who is proposing a talk, then probably you will get a positive answer. So don't hesitate to ask the program committee whether there's the notes, for instance. So I haven't given this talk before a lot, but I think it's a very interesting one. So I could use some support, then you would probably get it.
Yeah. I mean, so the question is about the reason, and I'm not sure whether it's obvious, but I would argue that the reason is that it's easier to attract more people if you have experienced speakers that are well known, and you actually do have to have those speakers to get people to join the conference. And, I'm not judging. Obviously, that's a bad thing because it means that there is just so much space for newcomers. And it's actually also a bad thing because my experience is that quite often those newcomers have very interesting stuff to say. So it's sort of, but that's the world we're living in. So I think that's probably the reason, apart from capacity. And I'm not saying that's great. It's quite the opposite. The other thing, I mean, sort of and we should probably take that as the next question. So, how do you get to submit your first talk to a conference? How do you start? And I would argue that there are other possibilities to do that, and not just those newcomer slots at conferences and those mentoring programs for conferences. What I'm trying to say is it's not just the conferences that provide some possibilities there or some support, but it's also other things that you can do. And therefore, the next question could be or should be, what are some tricks about submitting your first talk to a conference, ideally successfully? How do you do that? Anything that you think helps
Yeah,
there?
Michael mentioned it earlier, or was it Jörg? I can't remember. Last year we had an experienced speaker who submitted a lot of talks, but with different co-talkers, so different co-hosts. And so we didn't hear about the co-hosts before, but obviously he had. And so that's what you could do. You could find a mentor in your field and give a talk together with them. Yeah, that is a good start. Or
Another
as I mentioned before, try it at meetups.
Another one would be meetups, user groups, of course. Yeah, so I've definitely given my first talks at user groups and actually inside of companies. So inside your own company, so get experience in your own company. That of course doesn't give you some credibility outside, but at least training. And speaking at user groups will give you some network. People get to know you. That's a good point. Another very important one really is try to get to a user group that can actually record the talk and maybe publish it on YouTube, because it is very helpful for a program committee if the program committee doesn't know you, but they are able to just see a video. That's also something you could, for instance, put into the notes, just some link to a video, because if I can see you speaking, then I have a much better feeling what kind of speaker you are and how good are you at speaking. So this is another one. Of course, not every user group has the equipment. Well, I'm organizing the Java user group in Berlin myself, and I know we don't have the equipment to record talks, even if people ask us. But if you're lucky, if you can do this, this is a very good way to do it and to get known.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
two ideas that I would like to add. So maybe ask someone in the audience for feedback, and have someone actually sit there and provide some feedback to you. And the other thing, because you said it doesn't help your reputation, I would actually argue if you submit something to a conference and say, well, I've done this talk at this user group, it definitely helps. So you should definitely
Absolutely.
add it to the notes and say, okay,
Yes.
this is what I did, and I did it here. And even if you did it internally in your company, you can still add it to the notes and say, okay, I did it, and it's gonna work in your advantage. It doesn't make any sense to not add it to the notes.
Yep.
Okay. So talking about, and we sort of scratched the surface of that topic already once or twice. So what about underrepresented groups? What are underrepresented groups, and how does that matter for conferences and conference organization?
A
Well-
lot. Sorry.
And in our area, underrepresented groups are mostly everyone who doesn't look like Jörg and me, like who isn't a middle-aged or old white guy, is underrepresented, unfortunately.
Yep. Indeed. And this is unfortunately also the case in the call for proposals themselves. So even if we would like to choose people in the CFP in a much more balanced way, it depends on the conference. There are some conferences where you have 100 entries and only 2 or 3 from underrepresented groups. That's really sad. So as a program committee, you definitely have to work on that actively. So you have to take a look at pages pages like speakerinnen.org and so on to actively approach people that are not old white male, and ask them whether they would like to talk at your conference. And that also, if you are one of them, one of those people that belong to those groups, then yeah, please try to get yourself visible on those pages or somewhere else, because we need to change that. We have a problem with that, definitely, on many conferences, and we really want to change that because in the end it will change the whole industry, and that's very, very necessary.
I am right now, currently in this minute, working at one conference where I do not have this problem because all of our speakers are female plus. So say read as female, read as women. But this is the first conference where we do have the whole setup just with female, women plus. And before that, it was always, or it is, and even now, it is always an effort to go out and find the people. So I also was working on conferences where it was invite only. And even if you identified the people, the underrepresented groups, if you identified them, it is still a lot of effort to convince them, yes, you should be on the stage. Yes, you are the expert in this field. Yes, I can help you, and so on and so forth, because mostly these underrepresented groups come from a background where they are not told this enough, that you can do this seriously. Yes, I'm inviting you because you are the expert, not because you are from, yes, of course, because you are also from an underrepresented group, but I want to hear from you. And if someone from a program committee tells you this, please have the benefit of the doubt and believe them. And of course, there are black sheeps out there who are starting to search for underrepresented groups 2 weeks prior the conference. But usually, program committees do think about this very, very early in their progress, in their process.
So which conference were you talking about?
The invite only?
No,
Oh.
the one that is going to be.
Oh, that is the Women Plus in Agile and a question, not Agile. Sorry, I'm nervous. Women Plus in Data and AI Summer Festival.
Okay, so I'll put a link in the notes.
Yes, I'm very happy about this.
Yeah,
thank you.
So one thing that I want to add, talking from my experience, is so obviously there's sort of an ethical point around this, right? So we should have equal chances for underrepresented groups too. I have to admit that there is a sort of more a different reason why I think this is important, because my experience is if you explicitly take persons from underrepresented groups, it's sort of like with the newcomers. So you get new ideas and new stuff, and usually that works out just great. Which basically means that the problem that we are having is that we are missing on all that great content that we could have because those underrepresented groups are underrepresented, and we have to sort of break that cycle, right? It's about, I mean, if I invite people that I know, if I use my network, then I will end up with the people that I know, and to get new stuff in there, you would need to join my network. So I think underrepresented groups is one way, and focusing on them is one way to break that and to get new interesting stuff in there. So that is, I think, another reason apart from that ethical thing. And I have to admit that there are quite a lot of occasions where I thought where this worked just perfectly, where I was like, okay, this was really a great talk, and if we hadn't had such an focus on underrepresented group, it just wouldn't be there. Not because it's a bad talk, just because it's outside the network. So I think that's another very good reason.
And also with that, you are creating new role models for the next generation.
So I think that's quite important. So anything else that we still need to talk about? Anything else that we sort of haven't covered?
One thing that passed my mind several times is a thing that many newcomers are not really aware about. Don't be afraid. The audience wants you to win. They don't want you to fail. They're really on your side most of the time.
Mm.
So
which is a perfect point. And I was thinking about that when we were talking about the questions and the sort of the expertise that you have to have. Usually when I get questions in the conferences in IT, it's about people who really want to know something, not about, this is, I have a different opinion, or, I'm pretty sure that you don't know that. It's really about trying to understand and trying to get some more knowledge. And I think that's different in different environments. So that is something that is, I think, important to bear in mind. And also concerning the user groups, in particular for the user groups, I think the sort of the setting and the feedback is quite positive, because people are thankful that you go there and you do that talk for free, basically. So, and that sort of already creates quite a positive environment that you, and it's also usually, if you have a user group, there is 1 or 2 talks. So it's your show. And that's quite different in a conference, right? Because in a conference there are so many other speakers, and it's just one slot that you're doing, and there are all the other slots. So that is why I would encourage people to do talks at user groups, in particular as the first talk, because it's a very positive environment by design, and people are, as I said, thankful. So I think that's another sort of trick there. Okay, anything else that we still need to add?
Yes, when in doubt, ask questions. As usually, if you if you do not know if this is okay or not, you can always contact the conference organizer or the program committee if you need anything, if you want anything, if there are some boundaries that makes, well, if you need anything, just ask.
Great. So I think that was that were some great final words. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining us, and have a great weekend, and talk to you soon next week or so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Bye.